Hello and welcome all to the webinar. First of all, I would like to thank you all for joining us on today's webinar. My name is Rishika Omar and I am going to take few minutes of your time to explain you the ground rules and give you a quick introduction about what our company does, and then I'll hand it over to our trainer. So we have set certain ground rules for this webinar. You all will be on mute mode during the session, and you will be unmuted at the end of the session for the question answer round. During the session, if you have any queries, you can type your question in the chat window and our technical team will answer that. So this webinar will be recorded and we will be sharing the recording with you all for future reference. Just to give you a quick introduction about the company, we are globally recognized and the most trusted DevOps certification providers. DevOps University is an autonomous organization which promotes DevOps by bringing all communities together to share their knowledge at a single platform. We design DevOps certification program and award accredited certificates. Our concept is to provide experiential DevOps learning for IT engineers and other IT professionals. Apart from this, we also provide career counseling, mentoring, and training to fresh graduates, postgraduates from different, across the globe. You all can visit our website to get more information about the same. So now, just a moment. This is okay. Yeah. So this is going to be actually very useful slide for those who wants to enroll for the course. We have an on-spot offer on the actual course fees. As you can see here, those who want to enroll for the course can get 10% instant discount, and this offer is valid only for the webinar day. So I'll quickly tell you about the date of the our next batch, which is starting from 26th of March. I'll not take much time of yours, and we'll quickly move to the trainers introduction. Basically, our trainers are the real-time industry practitioners who are having very rich experience of close to around more than 10 years on these technologies. So without any further ado, I would like to hand it over to Mr. Anuj to take this further. Anuj, I'm handing it over to you now.
Sure. Thank you, Rishika, so
Yeah,
much.
yeah.
Welcome everyone to this webinar on the continuous deployment here. We are going to talk about the market standards today on specifically this continuous deployment. And from my experience, I would explain you guys that what are the different technologies which is being used, different industry point of view, because I'm working purely in the banking sector, but I do a lot of trainings in the other areas in the other industries also. So from that experience and exposure, I'm going to explain you everything that what you will help you. And if you're looking forward specifically for our industry, we can talk about that. We can consider those parameters, and we can have a very good amount of demo also, right? So first we will be talking about, like, for 30-40 minutes, I will be talking about what is this technology all about, what we are doing in the continuous deployment and all that stuff. And then definitely we will talk about the a short demo in which couple of continuous integration and continuous deployment tools I'm going to explain, so that you can get a complete picture that how exactly we pursue the same thing in our organization, in our industry there. And again, if you want to switch between the tools, like you have specific questions regarding any tools, we will take care of that stuff towards the end. and we'll try to answer all your questions all together on that particular aspect here, right? So but before even we get started with this with this today's session, so anyone having any particular kind of a doubts or questions, you can let me know. Like before even we get started and you have some prior questions or some doubts, we can take care of that here. Great. So meanwhile, when I'm going to cover the content, any kind of questions if you want to ask, the chat window is available there, right? So later on after the content is covered, will allow you to like speak also and ask your questions. No question is wrong. Any kind of question you can ask. So no one is going to judge you whether you're going to ask a valid question or invalid question. I'll explain you both the ways. And again, it's like apart from continuous deployment, if you have any kind of other doubts related to DevOps or any other tools, I will be happy to answer that also. So let me quickly share my screen so that we can get started with our agenda, that what we are going to talk about in this specific like topics here, right? So regarding the course is already being explained to you guys, and if you have any particular doubts, we will talk about that stuff. So if at all you wanted to like get a little bit details, like in-depth details about the course, then we have a site available there, and we just really wanted to see like how the implementations we are going to talk about, like what are the different setups we consider over here. So we will be considering that what are the different possibilities which is available, and we can like you guys can actually join this upcoming session, and we typically talk about various DevOps technologies on this particular aspect. All right. So again, what we are going to talk about today is that we are going to talk about three important components. Although we are considering this as a continuous deployment topic over here, but related to that, we also have a continuous integration, delivery, and deployment. So all these three components we will be talking about, and then I'm going to give you a lot of informations about the different continuous deployment tools which is available in the industry, which industry or which organization is using what kind of tools, how bank is doing, how the startups is doing, how a financial organization is doing, how a industry like a automobile industry is using, how exactly the e-commerce industry is doing. So there are like a lot of tools which I will be explaining you on that part, so that you can have a clear picture that how these continuous integration is really happening in the industry. And some of the myths also we will burst over here today, so that you can have a complete understanding or the complete crystal clear information on this kind of a topic here. Now, again, let's get started to the background that why exactly we need to talk about this continuous integration, deployment, or delivery, because all these things are quite interrelated. So you cannot directly jump on continuous deployment without going for continuous integration. Now, in the legacy world, I'm talking about like 10, 11 years back, even the matter that when I joined the organization for the first time, I was not working as a DevOps engineer, because at that time the DevOps keyword itself was not there. So people were working as a build and release engineer, like a release manager or a release engineer. So those kind of profiles were actually available in the industry. So I was kind of using that like certain tools. So I was not having any Jenkins, I was not having any kind of automations. So I used to run some couple of core shell scripts to perform the kind of sequence of commands. I used to do the build manually. Even if I have to invoke some test cases, that is also invoked manually. If I have to do any kind of deployment, that is also something which is quite manual there. So there were like a lot of manual efforts which was being done, which was available there, and I was involved on that. Now I don't have to explain the disadvantages, because everyone knows that what are the disadvantages of not having an automation. So you are not getting the efficiency into your daily to daily activities. And certainly there is a risk, there is a failure risk, which is 100% available there. And I was also like facing the same problems because sometimes the build does not happen properly, or I miss out some steps, and it was really a nightmare there. So, but again, this is the situation which the industry was before the agile, before the DevOps, and before all these continuous integration, continuous deployment, and all these processes there. Now, if we go 5 years back, or maybe we go 6 years back, so at that time we were like having certain new processes which was there in the industry. I mean, if we talk about at that time, we started moving out. The reason why I'm relating it with my experience, because I have seen that whole journey of my organization towards DevOps, that how we have moved on step by step there. So from the typical commands, we went on with some shell scripts, we did some automations. We are not running the commands anyhow. I don't have to remember the commands. I have a clean script available there. So we created in the shell script, we created in the Perl script. And what we did is that we had those scripts, and we simply integrated those scripts back into our Jenkins. Again, I'm not talking about that we implemented the continuous integrations or those kind of aspects anyhow. So what we did is that we did a very simple basics process that we went on, and we performed some integrations, and we created some Jenkins jobs, and it was like checking out the code base, and it was performing the builds. And in fact, we also created some deployment scripts which we did not integrated with Jenkins, but again we invoked those automatically, and we were able to do the deployment. So automation is not new. We The build automations and the deployment automations, these are not like a kind of a new processes which we have got here. These were present in the industry before also, but the matter of fact is that we were not having the correct tools in the industry, and we were doing the things in a very long manner. So although we started using the deploys, we started doing the build automations and the deployment automations, but when agile comes in, when DevOps comes in, so at that time, really the new processes like continuous integration, continuous delivery, continuous deployment, continuous testing, these couple of standard processes gets originated. So agile and DevOps provided these latest best practices in the industry for the development teams, so that they can go ahead and they can expect, or they can implement these implementations or the setups all together. And that's a beautiful thing about this, because it clearly helps us to see like how these implementations we are really going to work, and we are really going to handle over there. So we will talk about that, what are these different three different components over here, and how we are going to manage these stuff so that we can get the proper functionalities and the results right away here. So that's a kind of implementations which we wanted to conduct, and we wanted to perform it up over here in this case. Right now, so this is what we talk about as that how the industry went on from the particular basic process, like a basic mechanisms, and we can perform the overall implementations right away over here. So that's a approach which is followed. All right. Now, so again, when we have the DevOps, like you might have heard about, there are a lot of new technologies which is coming up there. I'll explain you that stuff also. You might have heard about AWS DevOps. the specific Azure DevOps. So these all like different passwords, like different possibilities which is there, where people are like moving on to a next gen, to a new infrastructure. They are talking about the CI/CD automations, the pipelines. So a lot of enhancements are actually available there in the industry, and people are moving on towards that. They are like looking forward at how these implementations are really going to work, and they will be, eventually going with that particular process altogether here. So definitely that's a basic understanding which we wanted to understand, also to see like how these setups we are going to conduct, and we will be learning up here. So let's begin with the very first process, which is like being associated very in depth with the developers, and from there we will move on to the continuous deployment, and we'll talk about that stuff here. So the very first process which comes up for an organization, for a software development team, and one of the biggest pain for a development team was performing the builds. Now we understand that deployment, like we were talking about continuous deployment, like a deployment automation, but understand that deployment is something which is conducted a very rare, like maybe once a day you are doing the deployment, if I'm talking about the lower environments. But if we talk about the builds, you are expecting the number of builds in a day, it's going to be more, because a huge number of developers, if they are working on your source code, so you are expecting to have more kind of source code available there. Now, the thing is that when we talk about the scenarios, like when we are trying to understand that the organizations are going to work with the continuous development process, they are having multiple developers contributing around the clock. We also have the onshore, offshore kind of development centers. So you can expect that it's a continuous effort which is going to run. Now, certainly, in the legacy world, we used to perform these things manually. And I remember that when I was not recruited in the team, so I heard that the development team was actually having one developer dedicatedly sitting for this part only. Like he was doing some small like development, and apart from that, they were they were like properly, or they were like having a lot of other aspects and the problems as such here. So definitely that's a kind of process which we will be able to see, right? So definitely the developer, one of the developer were doing these things manually, and he was most of the time doing this stuff only, and that's why they were losing a developer, and that's why they hired me. So continuous integration is a process, is one of the best practice which is resolving this problem. You don't have to depend on anyone for performing any builds or performing any kind of compilation. As a developer, your primary task is to just contribute and do the development work, do the development activity. That's what you wanted to do. You wanted to see over here in this case. Okay. Right. So this is a kind of a very standard, like very minimum requirements nowadays, because the developers were like involved in a lot of manual activities. So they wanted to automate at least this piece of work for them, so that they don't have to handle this work manually. Now, when we talk about the continuous integration, so there are two kind of tasks you have to do. First, you have to continuously you have to continuously do the commits, like whatever the commits you have done to the version control system, you have to continuously push those to your version control system, to your central repository. And the moment you do this, the automation will run in, and you will get your builds triggered. Now, how earlier people were doing it, you're doing the commits in the version control system, someone is sitting who is doing the build, so he will check out the code base, he will run the manual commands, he will run the manual test cases, and then he will be sending an email that yes, the build is successful, or this so and so build is successful. Whatever the artifacts, whatever the end result is there, he is going to hand over that part. So this is a very high level of process which was being conducted manually by the development teams, in which you're not getting that kind of efficiency also, plus you're depending on that person. If that person goes offline, or if that person is not available, or he is on leave, so definitely your operation will be disrupted. So then you have to find out some backup person, and all those kind of standard processes you have to follow, you have to conduct them. Now, as far as the continuous integration is conducted, we talk about that. Now, this is a standard flow here. So as a developer, we don't want to contribute to any kind of a build process. We are individuals who is motivated only to do a development activity here. So development one, so developer one and developer two, you are going to work as a particular process, like you're going to work in such a way that you're going to contribute. So you're going to just do the commits in the version control system, and it can be anything like any version control system. So you're just doing the commits, checks in, and all the particular stuff you're doing there, so that whatever the changes you have got, so you can just move those to the version control system. Now that's all what you need to do as a developer. So even if in this session we have some couple of developers, so they can relate over here is that they don't have to do even any additional task there. They have to just take care of the source code commits, checks in, and that's all. Once the code is there in the version control system, you don't even have to do anything. I mean, there is mechanisms where you can do this stuff to a next level, like you can automatically trigger it. So automatically the builds will be triggered in Jenkins, which is known as the continuous integration server. So the build automation will be triggered, the test cases will be triggered, and depending on the success and failure, you will get the response back also over here. So that's a kind of level of automation which we are getting over here. And it's like something which is very, very, perfect over here. I will show you also technically like how in a particular demo this really works on. But yes, this is the continuous integration which we talk about over here, purely automated. It's going to help you to see like how, as per the commit, the whole process is going to be derived. After the test cases, if you further on went on with the deployment automation also, so then it becomes continuous integration and the continuous deployment here. Let me show you within another image here. See, this is this image. I'll come to this image later on also. But yes, this is the high level of image which you can see that you are having continuous integration, continuous deployment, all that bundle up together into a single flow. And we call it as in DevOps CICD pipelines. We'll come to that point also. What is this component here? Now, usually when you work, sometimes some professionals call it up as continuous delivery. Sometimes some professionals call it as a continuous deployment. And we kind of say that okay, like it's almost the same only. And I have met a lot of people who in my industry, in my organization also, like the developers, they're also like kind of using the same terminologies. So continuous delivery and continuous deployment, yes, end result is there that you are doing the production deployment, but they are like quite different from each other. And it also depends on the nature of your application that whether you're going for the continuous delivery or the deployment here. Let me give you an example. In my organization, it's a banking sector, it's a banking application. We cannot go for the continuous deployment. Why? If you see the continuous deployment, this is a single pipeline here. This is running into a single flow. There is no stop. Everything is automated. Like the moment you do the commits, builds will run, the test cases will run, the unit test cases will execute, which is continuous integration. The acceptance test will be executed, deployment to the staging environment, deployment to the production environment, running the smoke test cases. So you don't see any kind of manual interruption over here in this one that someone is approving or someone is accepting or someone is declining. No, which also means that it's very risky part that if you have this kind of automation, then your test cases should be very extensive and should test each and every aspect of your application since you're not doing any kind of manual validation. Plus, this deploy can be done at any moment of time. It's known as the on-demand deploys or on-demand pipelines where you're just going to do the commits to the version control system and automatically everything will be taken care and you will see like all these different processing being done, being conducted over here right away. So this is a kind of implementations which we are trying to see so that we will be able to like talk about it, how these implementations are really going to work and we will get the proper possibilities and the setups here, right? And if we talk about the other aspects, like if we talk about the other components, so in this case also we are trying to see like how we are doing the deployment, we are running the same stages if you can see, but there is a slight difference in this area. So what's the difference over here? So the main difference which we got over here is that in this area, how you're doing the deployment, that is deciding that whether you're going for continuous delivery or a deployment here. If there is no check, if there is no manual check and everything is going as per automation, so that's where you call it as a continuous deployment. If you're not going with this approach and you are just having over here, so in that case you are talking about it as a particular continuous delivery, which means that you are going to hold over here. Till this point it's all automated, single flow, but after that you're going to do some kind of manual checks, you're going to just validate it, and then you're going to trigger the deployment to the production environment. Now this is what I'm using into my organization, which is known as the continuous delivery, because my applications cannot just like that go down. I have to inform my stakeholders, I have to notify them, and then on a non-business hour on Saturday or Sunday, I'm going to bring down my application. So I have to take care of a downtime. I have to conduct that, and that's where the continuous delivery comes in. So I have a separate CI pipeline which is performing the builds, which is automated, and I have a separate continuous delivery pipeline which is available, which I trigger on demand. Trigger on demand means manual, so I'm triggering that stuff manually there. Whereas in case of the continuous deployment, everything is smooth, everything is in a single shot, in a single pipeline. You're taking care of the build, test cases, and then ultimately doing the production deployment also. But if you can have this production deployment separately as a kind of a manual step, then that's something that you're calling it up as a kind of, like a continuous deployment altogether here. So depending on the nature of the setup which you are trying to look upon over here, you would see that the automation is going to be conducted and you are going to get the proper results right away over here in this one. So this is the way that how these implementations are really going to work, and you will be getting the proper results right over here. So a lot of people get confused with this one and they just call continuous deployment and delivery as the same, but it's not the same there. So it's actually quite different. So the banking sectors, the applications, the mission critical applications, the products which cannot go down just like that, or which cannot be changed just like that without informing the stakeholders, they all comes to the continuous delivery. But a lot of startups, there are some organizations like Flickr, so they just like that do the deployments. The moment they are done with the development, they are finished doing the changes and commits and the code changes, immediately they are going for the deployment, and that too also in a single shot. So no one is going to wait and approve it or decline it. It's always going to be deployed and get the proper responses and executions done there. So that's a kind of a primary benefit which we get over here when it comes to the setup, when it comes to the the overall implementations right over here. So this is a kind of summary, we also talk about that how these things are really going to work, because we include or we integrate all these different mechanisms and the different purposes right away over here in this one. So this is what we call it up as a continuous delivery and deployment. And one thing you must have seen, that continuous integration is a basics. If you don't have the continuous integration available, you cannot go for continuous delivery or deployment here. So continuous integration is the first step and continuous delivery and deployment is the second step here, right? And we have plenty of tools available for the continuous deployment, and I'll talk about that stuff also. But if you can see here that we have actually got some if we talk about the CI/CD pipelines, because like I said in the previous image also, that if you have all the things in a single shot, so that's where the continuous delivery deployment comes in, and we call it as a CI/CD pipeline. So this is the CI part where you have build, unit test cases, integration test cases. The CD part is review, staging, production, or maybe another kind of test cases you may run over here. But one thing is there, that if you have a single pipeline, it will call up as continuous deployment. If you are like not calling it up, or if you have two portions over here, so then in that case it's going to be like a kind of a separate pipeline, and you will be calling it up as a continuous delivery there. So depending on the nature or depending on the setup, you would be able to see like how these implementations are really going to work over here. So this is how a typical CI/CD pipeline really looks like, which is going to help you to understand and grab that how these different setups are really going to work over here as such there. All right. So when we design the pipelines, so we actually go depending on the project to project. So whether we want to go for the continuous delivery or deployment, so we have to decide upon that. And then only we will be going and we will be modifying that stuff here. So definitely it's a kind of a benefit which you are going to get over here, so that you will be able to see like how this is going to really work over here. Now there are a lot of continuous deployment tools which is available there. Like we have code deploy, AWS Code Deploy, which is going to help you to deploy on AWS resources, Lambda functions, Elastic Beanstalk, ECS, ECR, Octopus Deploy, like on-premises infrastructure. If you are banking sector and you cannot go to the AWS cloud, so then you can decide and use the Octopus and Jenkins tool, because they are like quite comfort tool, like a kind of open source tool, which you can use and you can integrate. TeamCity is a paid enterprise tool, but again, a great tool. Just like Jenkins, you can perform both continuous integration and continuous deployment over here. So there are some modern tools also in the industry right now, like GitLab, GitHub, Bamboo. They all are also providing the CI/CD pipelines. They all providing the mechanisms that if at all you wanted to do the deployment automatically, you will be able to do that, and you don't have to do any kind of much manual activities as such there. If you are able to achieve this automation to one environment, then the same thing can be replicated across different environments, like 5 6 environments or 7 8 environments. It's not a matter of concern. So any environment you will be able to roll out or you will be able to deploy here. So this is a kind of a perfect example which you can get over here, so that we would be able to see like how these implementations are really going to work, so that we will be able to get the proper results as such here. Right. Now I have prepared a short demo, right, for you guys to understand that how this flow overall flow is going to be performed here, right? So I have prepared a demo on an Ansible tool, because Ansible is a great continuous deployment tool there, right? So I have not mentioned on this particular list, but it's not that it's not a part of this tool. I have a separate image over here, a separate slide on Ansible, because it's one of the perfect tool available there. I'm currently doing or using the Ansible for the Windows, Linux, and different operating system based deploys, and I'm handling close to 200 servers with Ansible for performing the deploys. Now, if I give a brief introduction about the Ansible continuous deployment tool, this tool was primarily being launched in 2012, but in the industry, you primarily heard about Ansible around 2014 and 15 only. So it's one of the tool. Now there are two type of tasks which is being done or conducted for Ansible. One is like you manage the server configurations, like you do the installation of a softwares, packages, files, folders, all that stuff you do with the Ansible tool. That's one thing. And second task which you conduct with the Ansible is that you take care of the code deployments, like you use it for the continuous deployments as such here. Now, when we talk about primary this tool, so we are just trying to see like how Ansible is going to make your life easy. So if we talk about the flow, so you do the checks in, like as a developer, you do the commits to the version control system. It can be a GitLab, it can be a GitHub, or it can be a Bitbucket. So You can perform the changes, you can perform the commits. After the commits, as per the automated triggers, you have both the manual triggers and you have the automated triggers. So if you have the automated triggers, the webhook is going to be triggered, the Jenkins build is going to be triggered, and in that case, it's going to invoke the deployment. Like it can do the deployment to on-premises infrastructure, to AWS Cloud, Azure, GCP, or whatever you want Ansible to conduct. You will be able to do that stuff here. So I have prepared the same demo. So I will be, what I'm going to do is that I have a source code, like a Docker based source code. So my pipeline is going to compile my source code. It's going to prepare a Docker image. It's going to store the Docker image into the repositories, into the artifactories. And then it's going to invoke the Ansible for doing the deployment. And Ansible will be doing the deployment to my actual server, to my server on my application server there. So what's the benefit you can get over here? See, Ansible itself is capable of connecting to multiple servers at the same time, 5, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, even thousands of servers you can connect with Ansible with just one command there. So you are pretty much extending your tool, like your Jenkins tool, because when people were having the physical infrastructure, they were having only one servers, two servers, or three servers. But nowadays, when people are moving on to the virtual machines, they have a huge farm of virtual machines. They are having a huge number of servers altogether there. And then when you are trying to deploy on these huge number of servers, it's just really a huge pain for you guys, and definitely it's a kind of a area of pain also, like you have to conduct a lot of like problems as such on that part. So that's a reason why the organizations are moving on to see like how they can consider or how they can implement this tool, so that they can automate this one, they can automate and they can work it off over here, so that they don't have to do any particular problems, or they don't have to do any kind of issues as such over here in this one. So that's a kind of component which they will be looking forward, so that they will be able to get the proper results as such over here in this case. So definitely people are using it, people are going up on that part, and they are trying to see like how this tool is making life easy for them to get along with that particular functionalities here. So that's an approach which is available, and we can talk about that stuff here, right? So I will be also showing you the same demo over here, so that you will be able to see like how fundamentally we are doing this, and we can do the modifications and the changes right away over here in this one. So that's what we will be trying to conduct here, right? So Ansible is a very popular continuous deployment tool, which is available, which is taking care of the particular setups altogether here. So I have already got a particular Jenkins available with me. So a couple of tools I'm using, let me explain you over here. So I have a GitHub repository, like Git repository is available with me, like something where I will be having my particular source code available, like each and every piece of source code is going to be available over here. I do have Jenkins available where I will be creating my pipelines. I have a Docker Hub account where my Docker images are going to be stored, and then I have a particular server, like an application server, where we will be getting our applications deployed, and we can see our application up and running there. So these are the couple of resources which I have got over here, just so that we can understand that how automatically with just one click the whole process will be happening. So you can see your GitHub, your AWS account, your Jenkins, Docker Hub, deployment, and Ansible. There are close to six applications or close to six tools which is actually getting integrated over here. And that's the beauty about these modern practices, that earlier we were managing all these things individually like a manual processes, but certainly with the help of automations, all these things are happening in just a matter of one click here. So I don't have configured the auto check-ins, the auto commits, the webhook configs, because if that is also configured, I don't have to even trigger like a build now option or I need to run the Jenkins jobs, it will also happen automatically in that case. So a true CI/CD pipeline is all about having a build automation conducted, test cases, having some test cases, validations, and then ultimately doing the deployment to the production environment. So this is a kind of a validation which is being conducted, which is being performed, and that's what we are going to see over here also. And the kind of source code which we are dealing is a kind of a microservices, a Spring Boot based Docker image, which we are trying to prepare, which we are trying to build it out over here in this one. And that's what we are trying to perform over here in this particular process here. So, but before going for the demo, in case anyone have any kind of questions, please feel free to ask upon that. I'm going to show you the demo that how this continuous deployment really works. But if anyone have any kind of questions or doubts so far, please let me know. Okay, great. Now, when we talk about the pipelines here, so let me explain you the pipeline. So Jenkins file is the pipeline which we are trying to perform over here. Now this pipeline is very specific. In this one, we are just trying to see like what we wanted to like deploy. We wanted to host over here. So in this case, we will be going for a true CI/CD approach. So let me show you what is the CI, and then I'm just going to show you that what is the particular CD approach over here in this one. So that's what we will be talking about over here. So the very first thing which we have got over here is code checkout. So code checkout is a very first stage, like something when we will be saying that, okay, we want to run our particular pipelines, we wanted to trigger, we wanted to integrate. So for this one, what we really need to do is that we need to perform a particular code checkout. Code checkout is important because once the code is checked out, then only we will be able to proceed with our builds or any kind of further activities. Without the code checkout, we will not be having any particular details available as such there. So it's one of the first stage which is available, which we will be conducting. After that, we are running a particular Maven build, like a build automations we are doing. Now this build automations is going to be very important because it will let me know that if my source code is working fine as expected, is there is any kind of um, attributes which is correct, do I have the valid source code with me or not. So all that confirmations, all that details we will be able to get with the help of this particular component or with this particular stage here. So Maven build is going to help me to understand that if the build is really going to work perfectly fine or not. Then image, like we are just trying to run, like we are just doing a cleanup of the previous Docker images which is available there. So we will be just really trying to see like how the implementations we wanted to conduct and we wanted to perform over here. So there are some couple of tasks which we really wanted to do so that we will be able to talk about, or we will be able to achieve some couple of activities here. And then I'm trying to build out a Docker image. Like, I'm just picking up my source code, the code base is built out, I'm just building out a Docker image, and I'm just handing over like, proceeding into my build process altogether. And this is a part of a CI process. Like this is something which we definitely consider as a particular part of a CI process over here, that we are considering, or we are doing the continuous integrations right away over here in this one. So these all different set of activities which we are trying to consider. It's like something which is going to help me to understand that how these things are really going to work here. All right, and then I'm just pushing my Docker image to the artifact tree just to make sure that my artifacts is secure and sound, and I don't lose them anyhow. So I don't really want to lose these artifacts, these Docker images anyhow there. So these artifacts or Docker images I wanted to keep secure, and that's the reason why we are like performing these couple of commands executions, so that we will be able to get the proper results and the attributes as such here. And then of course, at last, we are invoking our continuous deployment tool, which is Ansible, and which is going to do the deployment there. Now, Ansible, like I said, it's one of the perfect continuous deployment tool, which is capable enough to do the deploys from one server to n number of machines there. So whether you have one server, two servers, three servers, four servers, five, six, seven, whatever number of servers and infrastructure you have really got, you're going to do the deployment to that stuff. And that's the beauty about this tool here. And it's like something which is going to really work, and see that how these things are really going to help you the proper results and the proper executions right away over here. Right, so this is a kind of implementations which we will be able to like see when we talk about these like a overall CICD pipeline as such here. So we call it as an CICD pipeline because we are taking care of the build process, Docker image build, the source code build out, and the test cases executions, and then we will be taking care of the deployment automations also all together there. So this is what we are talking about purely from the overall, CI/CD pipelines, and we can take care of the, overall mechanisms altogether. Right now, Ansible is the primary continuous deployment tool which we are using over here. But again, instead of Ansible, you have a choice. You want to go for code deploy, you want to go for Jenkins, or you want to go for the like Octopus deploy, Excel deploy. There are n number of tools which is available, and you will be able to achieve your requirements according to that. Some of the tools are open source, some of the tools are paid, and depending on your requirements, you can choose which tool you can really go and you can start integrating. Right, so let's without any wasting further time, let's go ahead and integrate or start including this pipeline into our particular project, into our Jenkins jobs, so that we will be able to get the proper results as such here. Now I have a source code also available in this one, so complete source code, everything. It's a real package with me, and we will be just having it up there. So right now, just do a verification. So we have a particular, this is my application server here. So right now, I don't have any containers available here. So eventually, when my whole pipeline will run, I will get a Docker container available or deployed over here in this one. So how you're going to put your source code from the version control system to the actual server, that's what we call it up as a continuous deployment process here, so that we can have a particular source code deployed right away. So let's see how we are going to run this one and how this whole process goes on there. So first of all, I have to create a Jenkins job. I have not created the Jenkins job over here, just to make you understand that how we go for that approach. Yes, I can say it. I'm actually going for a particular pipeline creation over here, and any specific name you can provide, but I'm just providing the deployment pipeline. And if you want to give any other name, you can always do that. So when I'm going to select the pipeline type. So the Jenkins pipeline is already available there into our particular version control system, and we will be just picking up this one so that we will be able to get the proper executions and the setups done here. So when I'm going to click on the pipeline here, so in this case, I'm going to configure now triggers. Now triggers is very important. So right now I'm having a manual trigger which is available. But again, if I have configured the automated triggers over here, so what is going to happen is that the moment I do the commits, the changes to the code base, automatically the whole pipeline is going to be triggered, and we will get our particular code base deployed right away there. And this is something which is one of the best feature, because now as a developer, all I have to do is contribute to the source code, contribute to the version control system. That's all what I have to do there. I don't have to do any kind of manual triggers or any kind of manual activities as such here. So this is the kind of the end results which you get when you talk about the implementations, when you talk about the whole continuous integrations, continuous deployment, or continuous delivery here. If you are dealing with the continuous delivery, then you have to split this pipeline, have a separate CI pipeline, and the CI pipeline will be only this. This is what you call it up as a CI pipeline alone. So, this is, you're going to have it up separately, and then deployment pipeline also you're going to have it up separately there. And that's where you will be able to make it up as a kind of a continuous delivery approach there. But since we wanted to understand the continuous deployment, so we will be running up or triggering this whole single pipeline so that we will be getting the proper setups as such here. So we are going to select this code. We don't have configured the webhook configurations, but yes, definitely if we have configured that, then we don't even have to trigger the build manually. It's going to be done automatically there. Right. So again, this is the Jenkins jobs which we have configured. We have configured our particular code repository that the source code is going to be checked out from the version control system. We will be beginning up with the build process, test cases, and then ultimately we will be going for the deployment automations. So all these different processes we will be invoking, and we will be executing right away over here in this one. So let's save this pipeline and click on the build now. Once the pipeline is conducted, I'll explain you. You will also be able to see that there are some steps which is available, which is conducted. You will see like complete stage view also over here in this one. But let's wait for this one to be done, and then we'll talk about that stuff here. So you can see that each and every stage is just keep on proceeding. You have the code checkout, build, image cleanup, image build, push to Docker registry, Ansible deploy. And if all the stages is being successful, everything is good, in the end, you would see that your Docker container deployed onto the actual server, which I have actually logged in into my Git bash there. And if I actually go to the output here, to the console output here, so first of all, it's going to check out the Jenkins pipeline from the code repository that we wanted to go up with a particular code. So that's one thing we wanted to process over here. So first of all, it's going to check out the code base, and which is like something which is very, very important. If you don't have the source code, you will not be able to do any kind of build process. So it's a very, very important stuff that you have to check out the code first, and then you will be proceeding further here. Same Maven build the source code build out is happening, the compilation is happening. We don't have the test cases, otherwise test cases would have been executed, but we can always execute the test cases. We can manually trigger it so that we can validate our source code. That's also we can go and see. After that, we will be going for a Docker image cleanup. We are building up a Docker image. You can see like we are proceeding with the Docker image built out. A custom Docker image is getting prepared. That's an artifact for us. And then we are pushing that Docker image to the Docker registry. So you can see that the Docker image is also something which is getting pushed out. And ultimately in the last, the Ansible playbook is getting executed there. Right. So you can, because see, when I have integrated the Ansible playbook file over here, it's your choice which continuous deployment tool you want to integrate. Instead of Ansible, if you want to integrate the code deploy, Octopus, or Urban Code, or Excel deploy, or whatever the tool you feel like you want to deploy, so you can actually integrate that at this moment of time into the pipeline. So this location, this stage in the pipeline represents the deployment, and depending on the continuous deployment tool which you are using this stuff. And this continuous deployment tool is also of two categories. One is like you can see here that I have configured Ansible. So if you are dealing with the virtual machines, you are deploying to the virtual machines, then Ansible, Chef, Puppet, these are the popular continuous deployment tools which is available there. Second, if you guys are dealing with the containers, then Docker and Kubernetes is a kind of is a kind of a tool which you will be invoking, you will be using there. So right now, if I have just deployed it up as a Docker container, but if I have a Kubernetes tool with me, I can easily integrate that Kubernetes tool as continuous deployment tool, and I can achieve the continuous deployment tool altogether there. So when you are dealing with the CI/CD pipelines, you have to take care like where exactly you wanted to do the deployment, and depending on that environment and depending on that tool, you're going to modify your pipeline accordingly there. So this one is only specific to the virtual machine. So that's why Ansible comes into the picture. If in future you talk about the Kubernetes or orchestration tools, so in that case you will be going for the Kubernetes tool altogether. So depending on the tool to tool, the pipeline will change, and you will get the proper results as such here. All right. So this is a way that how the continuous deployment tool really works in the first place, and you get your source code from your version control system to the actual environment as such here. So this is the perfect example for integrating the continuous deployment tool. And apart from the continuous deployment tool Ansible, we are also integrating a lot of other tools, Docker, Git, Jenkins, and the Docker Hub. And ultimately, at last, Ansible was involved over there. Right? So this is how we take care of the CI/CD pipelines and the continuous integrations and the deployment over here, right? So pretty much this is what we had for today, from the agenda perspective, to just to show you that how we can do these aspects. There are a lot of things to be considered, like how this is going to be triggered automatically, how the different kind of source codes we can deploy, because we only considered the Java based application. We also need to see like how the Docker containers or real Kubernetes tools can be used to integrate and perform the continuous deployment. So a lot of concepts is still present, and that's what we typically cover into our particular course altogether there. And there are a lot of other aspects also which is there from the continuous integration perspective also.
So thank you, Anuj. So we are now unmuting all of you for the question answer round.
Yep. Any kind of questions, guys, if you feel like you want to ask, please go ahead with that. Anything outside this one also, it's totally okay, and we can answer your questions and doubts there.
Hi Anuj,
Yep.
Shakir here. Thank you so much for this demo. I just have one question. What would be the benefit to using different tool rather than Jenkins for deployment?
Mhm. See, there is no use case of using different tools there. It's actually depending on your organizations. Now, since I have said that Ansible is the tool which I showed you as a demo, right? Now, it could be a possibility that your organization is not having Ansible. They are dealing with the Kubernetes or they are dealing with the Docker containers, so they will go for the Kubernetes altogether there, right? And similarly, some organizations are having the Ubuntu deploy. Some of them are having the like the Excel deploy. So there are a huge number of tools which is available in the industry, and normally, typically, you will see like all these different tools is like what you're going to integrate, and you will be having those tools available all together, right? So that's the reason why you have to keep yourself up to date to different tools, so that you can when the right time comes in, you can integrate those things right away on that particular aspect.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else, guys, having any kind of questions, doubts, any question you can ask upon? Nothing
Yes,
specific.
Anuj, I have.
Yeah.
I thanks for the session. I have one question. Like in Jenkins, we have a pipeline kind of structure for continuous integration, right?
Mm-hmm.
There are all other tools also similar to Jenkins, DevOps tools, which has this pipeline kind of structures, right? Like in
Mm-hmm.
my organization, we use Azure DevOps.
Mm-hmm.
So that has pipeline kind of structure, but I have not used that. But I just want to know that this pipeline kind of structure is same in all of the DevOps tools or is kind of different. It depends on tool
See
to tool.
the exact pipeline which I showed you over here. It's been written in the Groovy programming language, so we don't
Okay.
typically use the same way on that. There we use the YAML formats and all. But if I talk
Okay.
about the end result, that whatever the different end result you got over here, like source code built out, test cases
Mm-hmm.
executions, Docker image built out, Docker image upload to the Docker Hub or Kubernetes trigger. I'm being training in GitHub, because there is a concept of GitOps. So
Right.
under the GitOps, what is happening that you don't have to use this Jenkins and all these typical DevOps tools. GitHub, Bitbucket, GitLabs, using the CI/CD approaches or CI/CD automations tools, they are also providing these all different features to you there. So of course you have to write up in their language the pipelines, but the
Mhm.
end result is almost the same output you're going to get over here in this one.
Okay. So configuring the pipeline is different in all the tools as per their language, but the mechanism is same, right?
Exactly.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Any
Anyone
more
else have?
questions, guys, related to content topic that has been covered in the webinar?
Anyone having any kind of doubts or questions, guys?
Seems like we are not having any more questions. So we will be sharing this recording with all the attendees, and we'd like to thank you all of you for attending this session. We appreciate you being here. Every month we are conducting such webinars. Follow us on the LinkedIn and Facebook to get the latest update on the upcoming webinars. So every month we are conducting these webinars. And please provide your valuable feedback on the Trustpilot and Google reviews. We have been sharing these links on the chat window. So you can click on those links and provide your feedback. It will, really going to help us. Um, thank you. Thank you so much.
Hello, sir.
Yep.
I don't have question, but I'm getting joined late, so I don't have understand which topic are you taking
We have
today's
actually covered the
sessions.
continuous deployment topic today, and with the help of a demo, we saw like how from we can get our source code deployed from our source code to the actual environment to the physical server. So that's what we have seen using the help of Ansible.
Okay, okay, sir. Thank you.
Hello.
Yep,
Ansible is a tool for like Kubernetes, Docker stuff, or it's for something else?
it's
Sorry, I
for
missed that
everything.
part.
It's for everything, but lately Kubernetes itself is providing its own deployment tool. So people have stopped using the Ansible, but yes, it's also like one of the popular tool which is available for that fact.
Okay, but in my project, we are not using any such tool, but we are able to deploy the code into the Kubernetes. That's what I am surprised. Yeah.
Yep, yep. It's not a kind of a mandatory tool. So Kubernetes have gone out when the Kubernetes was launched in around like 3 years back. So that time the Ansible was primary tool available for that. But now people have stopped using it and they are directly doing the deploy in the Kubernetes.
Okay. Thank you.
Great. Wonderful. So that's it for today, guys. Thank you, everyone. Let's meet in the next upcoming webinars, and hope we meet next over there. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.